No, Idaho does not sell water to other states. And do we really think they put ping pong balls in the aquifer? Okay, let's move on to a few others. A few of them had to do with the homeowners association requirements to maintain lawns and yards. Getting rid of those might save some water, sure. And for that, we suggest you take it up with your HOA at the next meeting. But Lynn in Meridian had another neighborhood question. In fact, several of them that have to do with farmland converted to subdivisions. She says, like a lot of people, I have a water right that came with my suburban home in Meridian. She's part of the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, and she wants to know what water rights she has. Where does the water right fit in priority and process, and if her water can be restricted or cost too much that she'd eventually have to move, or she couldn't pay. Okay, so all right, we're going to do our best, Linda, here to see if we can answer these, but let's see if we can take these in order. With a little help from the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District Superintendent. First, what are your water rights as a homeowner with property that used to be farmland?
So what's happening when it converts over to a subdivision, that they still receive that same water right. It just gets diced up into however many lots that property becomes. And now we take that and we establish pressurized irrigation systems to water their lawns, their gardens, and all the landscaping in the common areas and everything else.
And with the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, the amount of water you have rights to is 5/8 of an inch per acre. You take that 5/8 of an inch per acre and divide it by how many lots are in your subdivision, and that's basically how much of a water right you have. And that kind of explains your status as well. Your homeowners association, if you have one, could represent you if an issue comes up instead of everybody trying to do it themselves. So you still have those rights. They're just a smaller slice of that big pie. As for whether your water could be restricted, sure it can, just like everyone else. If it's a dry year, the water runs out early, it runs out for everybody. Or you may be thinking, I'm not using as much water to keep my lawn green as a farmer would use to grow corn. There's got to be an excess of water, right? Where's the rest of it going? Well, remember that 5/8 of an inch per acre? That wasn't really enough to keep a farm flush with water either. So there really isn't any excess. The other side of that would be, then why not just use that water for other farms so they can increase their quantity? Well, that would lead to other problems, Greg says.
If we didn't continue to deliver water to the lawns, gardens, and everything else, they'd be pulling it from the ground. So we're saving billions of gallons of water from being pumped from our aquifer and still delivering the surface water.
Some of you may live in a neighborhood with water rights, but you may not be seeing the benefits of it, like Karen in Garden City. She says she pays $100 a year for irrigation water, to which she cannot access. Is she alone in this? Not at all. When the irrigation district began, the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District began back in 1904, Greg says there were private ditches running all over the place, delivering water in lateral irrigation ditches from the main canals. And according to Greg, you can likely blame that, the fact that they're not there anymore, on the me decade. Those people who didn't give two thoughts about the future you.
In the 70s, development, really boomed in the Boise area. And there was nothing requiring that developer to keep those ditches on those properties. So the sad fact is he would cut off not only his development, but he'd cut off somebody downstream.
Greg says in the late 80s, they did try to form some other irrigation districts to bring water back to those neighborhoods. And they did in a few, and it paid itself off eventually. But in order to do it, you have to have a certain number of neighbors agree to do it. And these days, there are a lot of rentals in some of those areas, he says, and those owners just aren't too keen on joining irrigation districts. Greg did tell us you can always give up your water right in this case if you're not having access to it. But he warns if you do, it's not easy to get back. And finally, we did get several comments about how we didn't address population or climate change in our water rights stories yesterday and how that has impacted the supply. We did, though. We just talked about how Idaho is one of the fastest growing states in the country. We just didn't get into the data, like how we've added more than 600,000 people since 2000. We also did touch on climate change and how year after year after year of drought isn't just an anomaly, it's now the new normal. We've talked about this before, too, earlier this summer, and how the hottest summers and some of the driest years on record have happened within the last 20 years. Just in the last 4 years, we've averaged 16.5 days above 100 degrees. It used to be 10 not that long ago. And by the way, Gary, your question about ping pong balls in the aquifer, that's for another day, maybe.